Okay, let's try this again. We're back with another episode here at Talk21. My name is David Venuto with Century 21 Fine Living. My co-host Sam Genova, and we have a special guest. Anthony, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm Anthony with In Touch Mortgage Solutions. Love the opportunity to speak a little bit here and talk about whatever's on your mind, especially with the market, everything that's happening.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting topic. So what are we seeing that's happening on your end of the market? I know things are kind of changing. There hasn't been a bank announcement of reduction, but we're seeing some internal things happening with their bank working their own kind of rates. What do you see on your end that's happening?
That's a great question. We're definitely seeing a lot of movement right now with the banks in their push to dominate the spring market. The competition's starting to get really fierce. A lot of lenders are back online. They're offering some pretty good discounts. Although the lenders haven't really moved their rates per se. We did have that little blip, like we were talking off camera, where the bond yields have started to go up on the news of the U.S. inflation coming in a little bit hotter, and then it sort of pulled back a little bit because we got that nice, wonderful headline inflation here from Stats Canada for January 2.9. So we're starting to see things happening. I guess from our perspective, I think you're feeling it the same way. We're starting to see a lot more people front load that market because they think or anticipate that the Bank of Canada is going to cut at some point. So they're trying to get out there, especially in that first-time home buyers segment, that $800 to $1.2 million range, at least from our perspective.
It's becoming a very busy market these days. It seems that everything, more or less, from Vaughan down, usually it seems like we're going back to a market where everybody's kind of holding off offers again, especially for the detached entry-level properties, right? It's kind of...
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it firsthand. So I'm seeing it firsthand with buyers and listings that are like total freehold detached homes, like the smallest of the smallest, even fully detached. They're fetching like 1.25 plus, and then they're in multiples again. I guess like people are just realizing the market's the market. We need to get in, and they're making moves. I mean, I'm talking to other colleagues and friends that are in other segments of not just real estate, and everybody's a bit slower. Like, I see the trades are coming down a bit. New homes are not like flying off the shelf again. And then you got manufacturing's a bit slow. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's hard to say, but like the first quarter, I'm not saying we've January was highs with regards to the amount of volume. I mean, they kind of, these stats, you got to be careful because they're basing it on what happened last year. Mm-hmm. And last year wasn't the greatest January, so it doesn't really matter. But we're noticing firsthand looking at stuff, and it seems like phones ringing a little bit more. We're out there, trying to get things done. It's not happening that quick. People are still hesitant. People are still anxious, still wondering. And so with that being said, it seems to be still a little bit up in the air what's going to happen, but it doesn't look like it's going in the wrong direction. Now, we'll see what happens. You can speak more about the renewals. There's a lot of renewals coming up too, and we don't know what's going to happen with those ones, right? So,
well, I think what's happening right now is what's important to tie in with the transactions that are happening right now, at least from our book of business. I mean, we're a small boutique brokerage in Vaughan. Seems to be a lot more people looking at that move up, or they're looking at entry-level towns, semis, and detached. I feel like we're not getting that many condos at this particular junction. I don't know what you guys are feeling, but a lot of our clients are approaching renewal. Obviously, two different types of people that are coming. One looking at what they can afford, if they can renew their mortgage and stay with a decent rate and not fall behind. And obviously, with interest rates being a little bit higher than what most Canadians were accustomed to, we fall into that. Hey, we're so used to those really, really low interest rates that as soon as we see something with a 5 in front of it, people start to panic. But much like we were talking about, I think for a lot of Canadians that got or purchased their home several years ago, they're okay. Like their mortgage payments are going to go up a little bit, just surely based on the size of the mortgage. But then there's a lot of buyers that are looking at the opportunity right now. They put that decision on hold. And now they're saying, okay, my mortgage is coming up for renewal. One thing we noticed is the COVID baby boom. I see a lot of people around me. They're just like, hey, look, I can't cut it anymore in this place. So they're waiting for that renewal potentially to make that jump because their mortgage comes up. They're like, hey, what can I afford? Can we make the move? They put that decision on hold. So that's what we're sort of seeing happening right now. But it's mostly, as you guys were talking about, semis, towns, detached home. Seems to be the push right now. A lot of people are going into that market.
I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but if we had to take a stab at it, I think I don't know, based on what they're showing in the news with the reports and it's saying being cut in half or something crazy like that.
Cut in half?
Yeah, from what they are today.
Is that true, Ed?
It's just so hard to predict, right?
For every article that points one way, I can find another that points the other, exactly. Right? This is the thing with technology today. There's so much information that's readily available to everyone, and it almost puts people in an analysis paralysis type of situation where they're not sure what they want to do. Because
and then data's manipulated. Like, whatever they put out there is all manipulated. So you gotta just kind of like feel good about the move and, make sure it's right because, and we as agents and brokers, mortgage specialists and that, we got to prepare our clients for the worst scenario. And with the worst scenario, at least you can make a decision that you're somewhat feeling comfortable with. Like, give them the worst scenario on what you can buy something for. What's the worst scenario with mortgages? So you kind of be honest with them and try to prep them. At the end of the day, we want to make sure they're we're wearing their shoes. Like, we want to make sure that when we move forward, we've given them some sort of guidance as to what we think. Like, I mean, we were all buyers and sellers. You just told me you bought and sold too, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking at doing the same, and I was thinking of selling my house and topping it up and then doing another full reno. And I'm one of those buyers that just put the brakes. I said, no, I'm not going to leverage any further. I'm going to stay where I am and spend the money doing what I have to do in my own place to make it more homey, and I'm not making the move. I mean, at the end of the day, so we're buyers and sellers just like our clients, so we got to make sure.
Hey, we're not immune to mistakes either. That's the thing. Like, when we did our transaction, it was, I've always said it to my wife. I've said we've always made these moves looking back at really bad times in the market. But realistically, we're here to tell the story.
But bad times means good times later on.
Well, this is the thing. When you're making a decision, right? When you're making a decision, most people don't live in a spreadsheet. They look at their financial situation, yes, but they look at their family. They look at what do they need to do. They're not going to be sitting there saying, okay, if the U.S. goes into a recession, what's going to happen? If China does this, if Ukraine does that, they're not looking at those dynamics. They're just looking at what they have to do today. And if their family's growing and they need a bigger space to live in, they're going to try their best to get that place, right? And obviously the finances are going to dictate how far they're stretching themselves, how far they're going to the closer edge of their budget, or they're staying below it.
And I'm going to set a question up for the table now. For home buyers entering the market, what's the ideal balance between securing the best mortgage rates and finding the perfect home? How can they navigate this dual challenge effectively and efficiently in such a turmoil kind of a time?
That question for me?
That's for the entire table. Mortgage broker specialist to realtor extraordinaires.
Sorry, can you read the question again?
No chance. All right, so for home buyers entering the market, what's the ideal balance between securing the best mortgage rates and finding the perfect home? How can they navigate this dual challenge effectively?
So you're talking like first-time buyers, is that what you're saying? Or just
primarily for home, no, just home buyers in general.
No.
I guess first time, someone that doesn't have collateral.
Well, I think you have to have all your ducks in a row, right? Like, you have to be pre-approved for a mortgage. You want to, back to Dave's point.
Well, why don't you start right there? No, hold on. You said you have to be pre-approved for a mortgage. What does that entail with the new 2024, standards?
We'll let you.
All right, I'll field this one. I guess it's up my roadhouse right here, wheelhouse. So, looking at a client that's approaching us for the first time, working with a mortgage professional, obviously no bias, but is the best advice because the value that they can bring to the table and looking at all the different angles. Be surprised how many times we work with a client who's gone to the bank and then decides to reach out to us, and it's like, I've learned more in 20 minutes talking to you than I did at 4 visits at the branch. And not that there's anything against that. It's obviously there's good people everywhere, but it's understanding those ins and outs. It's about spending the time to add the equations. What happens, like you were saying, if the interest rate changes? What happens in 3 years from now? What happens in 5 years from now? What things are you missing in your budget? It's not just about, hey, the ratios, the servicing, the ratios tell me, yep, you're good. Let's go for it. We always show our clients the flip side to say, look, this is what the bank's telling you. Yes, you can afford it. However, that's at your gross income, not on your net income. So let's start looking at those numbers on your net. And now let's start to see if your budget actually makes sense, because we all know that the government has their hands in your pocket. There's tax on that money. So how are you using pre-tax money to qualify? You're already going to fall behind the 8 ball when you come back in 5 years and say, I need to refinance because you had a kid or 2 kids, and all of a sudden now you're stuck. So you're presenting all these particular options and scenarios that clients didn't really think about. And I think that's the more prepared a client is to go into, the more you can guide them down this path, especially as people that have done it multiple times.
Right.
Let them learn from our mistakes. Why do they have to make them?
Not only that, you need to worry about you need to understand your clients and building relationships with them. You got to talk about risk averseness. Like, as much as you can afford, it may not be the full mortgage you really want, right? So you want to leverage yourself. Yeah, you can afford that $1 million mortgage, but are you going to be okay cutting out things maybe in your life that give you satisfaction, happiness? So you may want to talk about that too. It's not always just the numbers. You got to look at the big picture. Are you going to be okay with having $1 million mortgage and knowing that it's tight every month? You could do it. Or would you rather, like, okay, instead of getting that fully detached home right now, it's not your forever home, why don't we just do a semi right now?
Okay, so that leads me right up into a follow-up with that question. So it's competitive. We've already established that the market is competitive. Now, in a competitive real estate market, how can a mortgage broker and realtor team combo, all this whole combo here, assist home buyers in making their offers stand out? Okay? What strategies do you recommend to give clients to give them more of a competitive edge? So see, it's not just a point of getting approved. It's now, how do you stand out from the rest to actually physically get it? You know what I'm saying? So if you're now approved for, let's say, $1 million, now what's the next step? What can this team do to get the buyers to the next level?
Let's wait for this buzzing to stop.
Why do you still have a fax machine?
It's just somebody's calling the fax line.
No, but why do you still have a fax machine?
Because lawyers still want us to fax, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's still a thing. It's still relevant. Yeah.
But it's that we have a designated fax line. If they're calling that line for whatever reason, it's going to ring in like that. So, okay, so let's try this again.
Ready? In a competitive real estate market, how can a mortgage broker and realtor team assist home buyers in making their offer stand out? Following that up, what strategies do you recommend to give your clients a competitive edge over the rest?
Well, again, I mean, that would be having your ducks all in a line, because when you're ready to go in for that offer, you're competing. So you have to make sure you have it. But the problem I'm finding today with myself is it's like banks are always like clients aren't feeling firm, like they aren't comfortable going in firm because the bank is requesting that finance clause, which back in the day, things were different. So,
but not only that, also the pre-approvals. Like, I mean, you got pre-approvals, but it may not fund. Like, when you close, when you firm up and then you're closing in 2 months, and the bank appraisers go out and then all of a sudden they value
the market shifts. Yeah.
So that's why you got to be as conservative as possible, and teams working together, like broker, mortgage, and realtors working together and trying to give proper guidance. It's helpful, but at the end of the day, nowadays it's like on that first time for that segment, that freehold market, it's getting very heated up again, and we're seeing multiples. So there's nothing wrong with going firm, but that's why we got to make sure, we got to make sure.
Well, there's a lot of things here, and I think between the relationships that we've built, it's the communication aspect of it, as having that open dialogue with the agent. Because sometimes there's this huge disconnect between the broker and the realtor or the sales agent, because it's like, I do my thing, you stay in your lane, I stay in mine. Absolutely. Don't get involved with the financing, won't get involved with what you're doing with your sale price. But we have to be on board to look and say, okay, what are the comps? What are we looking at, or how comfortable are we? Yes, the pre-approval can be 100% ironclad, right? We can look at the down payment, the income, all the credit, all that stuff. We sort of underwrite it. As someone who worked in the bank, that's what I do.
Right.
I gather people are like, why do I need a job letter? Why do I need it? I'm like, because I'm making sure that I'm looking at everything 100%. There's nothing over. We're not leaving one stone not turned over. so that we can make sure that all that's bulletproof. The only thing that you mentioned we're missing is the subject property. What is that valuation going to come in at?
Yeah.
And back to our original point is sort of saying, okay, what are the client's contingency plans? Do they have a cosigner? Do they have extra money sitting in an investment account that maybe they're not telling us because they're like, I don't want to use it. It's my slush fund.
Do realtors talk to a mortgage broker
Yes.
about this stuff?
Yes, we should. Yes, absolutely.
No.
should
Do they?
Not always, but at times, like we try to connect and collaborate for sure. Especially if our clients, if you feel your clients are not secure in their moves, then we'll say like, who are you dealing with? Who is it? The bank? Maybe you should talk to a broker, because there's going to be more options when you go to RBC or BMO or whatever the big. They just have their own products. So if you're not sure, you got to go see a broker, and then let's all communicate.
The safest thing for someone to say is no, you can't go into a firm offer, which is something that as we've talked about, the broker itself, no broker should be telling a client that they can go into a firm offer unless they've gone through every single plan. Well, you have to look at it. Let's say you're sitting at a table and you're competing offers in a multiple position. The clients will always come to me and say, "And well, we lost out that offer. They're firm. Why can they go firm and I can't go firm?" And I'm like, well, there's multiple reasons. Maybe they have $700,000 as a down payment. They make X amount of money. They can qualify for a mortgage 3 times the size they need. So yeah, they're covered. You're not. You're limping in with maybe 20% down with no other contingency plan. If God forbid that property comes in slightly undervalued, you are dead in the water. So one of the things that we do with our clients, especially under that $1 million price point, is, and I had a client that we're looking at right now, is they want to buy under $1 million. But I qualified them with 20% down, or in the worst case scenario, with less than 20% down. Ideally, they don't want to pay the insurance premium. However, if push comes to shove, they can still qualify for that deal. They can go into a firm offer because I have multiple backup plans.
I thought it's against the law to go under 20%.
No, absolutely not.
Under $1 million, you can still go with they say minimum 5%, but you can buy with 5% on the first 500,000, and then it's 10% of everything over 5.
After $1 million, it's
20%. As soon as it has a 1 in front of it or anything else,
no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
20% minimum.
Okay, so for the first-time home buyer, now Sam and Dave brought you a first-time home buyer. The mortgage process can seem overwhelming for them, and we just explained that there's multiple facets. How do you guide them through the complexity of securing a mortgage while also helping them find the right property within their budget, within their realistic budget?
Well, I think it comes down to working with people like Sam and David, where we're all on board on the same thing. We want to achieve the client's goal, right? We want to try to get them where they want to be. So we're listening to that client. We're saying, where do you want to be? How do we get them there? Like, what's the journey look like? If we have to draw a roadmap, it's literally, as I said, having that initial discovery call, listening, say, hey, tell me your goals. How long do you plan? How long do you plan to stay there? I'm like, it's a very hard question because you haven't even seen the property. And that's why I tell clients, I'm like, it's hard until you've gone to look at some properties on what your price point's going to be, because you could stay there for 5 years. You could stay there for 10 years. You might decide, hey, look, I'm going to do the property ladder game. I'm going to live here for 2 or 3 years. Explain to them, saying the risks associated with that, right? Selecting the right mortgage that meets your needs. Back in the day, it was like everybody got slapped with a 5-year fixed rate mortgage. Okay. Nobody listened to the client. Says, I'm buying a condo. I might be here for 2 years. Why put them in a 5-year fixed mortgage?
Yeah.
Okay, now, Sam and Dave.
Yep.
Anthony is talking about the 2024 generational mindset. What about if your first-time home buyers come with baby boomer parents, funding them, and don't fully understand what Anthony just said? How the hell, as realtors, do you navigate them to say, no, our mortgage broker is right, and you need to change your mindset? But they're the ones financing this. So how do you do that?
Well, as realtors, we never we want to help and guide our clients in the right direction. And if the direction is coming from their mortgage professional, that they need to do, they need to listen to what, how they're positioning the deal. They need to understand that that's the proper way to do it in today's current market. I mean,
the only thing is, if there's a baby boomer parent coming in and stepping in,
Most times that is.
and if that is the case, then you have a better opportunity to put a firm deal in, because there's going to be a collateral.
cosigner.
There's going to be a collateral offset if it doesn't finance, or if they need a little bit more funding, right?
Does that happen? right there, what he said?
With
backed by baby boomer parents, will you say that achieving the financial goal is more attainable?
Well, here's the thing: when you're adding a parent or a sibling or a grandparent, is understanding. We had that conversation with them. It's like, yes, you're telling me, oh, my parents might co-sign. Okay, perfect, that's great. So let's gather their information as well, so that we're prepared. And then on top of that, we should be speaking with them.
Yeah.
Because it's never happened to me, but I've heard through the grapevine. Once, like, if that broker or bank is not explaining to the parent, hey, what are your dreams right now? Because you're a baby, you're retiring. By signing this mortgage, you could be potentially hand tying yourself to a lot of things. And you don't want the deal falling apart at the last minute at the lawyer's office when the lawyer's explaining to them, or they're getting a, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. They're getting a ILA, independent legal advice, because they have to, if they're co-signing or guaranteeing the mortgage, they're going to have to get that. And the lawyer's going to tell them, you're on the hook. If they don't pay, this is the...
Now hold on a second. Now you're in trouble, because if you get a grandparent, everyone, they are not working, so they do not have an income coming in.
Pension.
Well, that's what that's that.
Yes, well, it depends on the deal.
That would be yours. That would be your thing. But I'm talking about on a more bare, simple level. Basically, with the affordability, you say, look, you're going to be hand tied. Like if the appraisal comes in lower, and you're falling short, and you don't have the downstroke, then the parent will be helpful, and then you can say, you can go firm, because we sat down with your dad. He's not going to come on title. He's not going to co-sign. But he's going to give you another.
He's going to write the check.
He's going to stroke a check for 50,000 or 100,000, 200,000 if there's a shortfall. So that's where you can feel comfortable when you have that conversation with a younger couple coming in with their parents helping them out, and then it won't be legally binding. They're just going to contribute with cash. I mean, in a lot of young buyers, depending, like baby boomers, if it's not first generation, second generation of buyers, which are very similar to like us here at the table. Our parents came here and they built some equity. They didn't really believe in mortgages, and now they're helping people like ourselves or younger couples coming out, and they can help out, and they can out, and they will. And those are the ones that we can feel comfortable maybe saying, yeah, you can go firm. We spoke to your dad. If you can't do this and the appraisal comes in a bit less, you're okay. Like, the shortfall, your dad might help you out.
But now I'm going to throw you guys a curveball.
But hold on, one more thing. So with that being said, and like, again, if you guys can all contest with this and agree with me, that's why it's really important when you're dealing with these younger people that think they got it all lined up and they say their parents are going to be involved. Well, that's like a big light bulb. When I hear that, the first people I get involved is their parents. Yeah. We're going to go look at this house. You want to put an offer on it? Where are your parents? Like, I need your parents here. Oh, but we can make no, but you know what? If you said your dad's going to help you, I want him to feel comfortable with this. I want your parents to feel comfortable. So have them come out to look at it before you put an offer in, especially if you're going to go firm on financing. 100%. And we did a pre-home inspection, and you really want to go firm. I want to see your parents. I want to see what they think. I mean, if they absolutely say no, it's different, but I actually push. If you're telling me they're going to get involved, let's get them involved right from the beginning. So when you go firm and you got a binding contract and you're like 2 weeks away from closing and your parents are giving you heat because they shouldn't have done this, or you should have done something differently, we're not going to be in the line of fire then. Let's deal with it now. Okay.
We hit the 30-minute mark, but now I'm going to hit you with another banger. Ready? For clients with unique financial situations such as self-employment, individuals or freelancers, what challenges might they face in securing a mortgage? How can the mortgage broker and realtors work together to overcome these specific challenges? Self-employment. Never mind the mom and dad and grandparents. Self-employment.
If they need help, because self-employment, the regulations are a lot.
Help me out here, man. Self-employment is different, man.
For self-employed individuals, they still have to follow the bank's criteria. It's a little bit more stringent in some cases, but they still need their either a 2-year history of employment with incorporated or sole proprietor.
Now, sole proprietor incorporated, we're talking two different things now.
Two different ways that the banks could look at it, right? But most importantly, the one thing that we find with some self-employed, not all, is you got to show the money.
Yeah.
If you don't show it, the bank won't use it. So then we have to look at alternate options with clients, but the barrier to entry for some of these equity lenders is a minimum of 20% down.
But on a salary, you're presenting something that is sustainable. When you're a sole proprietor or someone of an entrepreneur, there is never going to be a set income. So what about if you have a lot of money in the bank, but
You gotta. If you're buying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you're buying a property under your own name or your wife's name or whatever your partner's name, you need to show the income. Like, I mean, so in other words, if you're a sole proprietor or you own a corporation, you got to draw salary. Like, you know, and you got to show that you're making money to be viable to support the debt, right?
Absolutely.
And so if you don't, if you're self-employed and you take a $20,000 annual income, and you're trying to get $1 million mortgage, it's not going to happen. So you gotta, even as an entrepreneur, as a like somebody who owns a corporation running a business, you gotta draw salary. You gotta draw salary. You gotta show that you're paying taxes, and you gotta be like, because that's what they're looking at, right?
Or you have to be comfortable going to an equity lender and paying a little bit more of a premium. And I always tell clients, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the reality is you go to an equity lender, the rate's going to be slightly higher. There's going to be fees associated with it. It's not private. It's an equity lender. They're looking at your bank statements. It's what we call self-employed income, right? And they're going to dissect those annual statements, your monthly statements, and see. But for some clients, as I said, their expenses are very large, so they show less. But as long as they can generate it, clients have to look at those options. Say, how much am I going to pay in income tax to my corporation, to the government, as opposed to, can I qualify for a mortgage and I only show what I have? And the bank will look at them and they'll assess the risk and they'll price it accordingly, but they might be able to get the financing. The difference is that 20% barrier to entry, right? That's the thing. Is like if you're self-employed and not showing the income, you know, scraping by, and you want to try to get a mortgage, there are certain products, but the qualifications are so tight.
And costs.
Cost.
So and that's another reason why, when you hear that as like agents working with those type of buyers, that's when you say you literally need to go speak to a broker. Like, don't even bother going to the bank, because they're not gonna have a product for you. If you're concerned about getting financing, don't bother having your credit hit by going to the banks, and numerous banks. You need to go see somebody like Anthony, like a specialist who can guide you and point you in the right direction. Because the worst thing we as agents do is we tie up homes conditional, and then they go backpedal to talk to their mortgage specialist and find out they're never going to pre-approve. So they've been doing this for 6 months, 2 months, 8 months, a year, and then realizing they're not going to be able to do this anyway.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on our show today with short notice. We appreciate
problem.
taking the time. This was I think a fantastic episode and a lot of information for everyone. For sure. We appreciate that, and we'd love to have you on the show again down the road.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, David, for having me on the show.
Thank you, Anthony.
You can find me at Sam Geneva on Instagram, Sam Geneva Real Estate. Dave?
Yeah, and you can find me at C215 Living Realty.
And you can find me on Instagram at InTouch Mortgages and A_Venuto.